right. Let me see that sweatshirt, fancy pants.
This is one of our swag.
Oh,
super cozy.
God, that looks amazing. You haven't worn that yet. I guess it's been so hot there.
I have, but it's been summer, so
it's been super hot. Oh, it's so cozy. What size is that?
Do I have to say my size?
Oh, okay, sorry. Never mind. Nope. No, you don't.
It's
a small
or large, maybe.
It's a small.
Extra small.
It just looks so big on your teeny figure.
Of course.
Awesome. I'm wearing my Finfokahim today.
Oh, I love the color of that one.
I do too. That's turquoise. And I'm wearing a very fancy necklace that pairs so nicely with
You're so color coordinated.
With my crappy t-shirt. No, actually, the cut on this is so amazing. Look at it.
I love the cut on those ones. The loose fit.
Boob shot there. Yeah, it's super loose fit, but I love it. I love how it hangs off the shoulders, kind of easy, like 80s style. I love it. I really do. It's so cozy. I feel like I'm in my pajamas. So it's like my favorite kind of clothes.
Well, we kind of could be in our pajamas, and
we really could be.
Nobody would really know.
I know. I was in my pajamas driving my son to school this morning, and I had to park on my street because we have 3 drivers in our house. So we have all these cars, and I not one, not 2, but 3 people, like no bra, full on pajamas, like nightgown. 3 of my neighbors were out and saw me walk back to my house. Of course, I have to like put my hands across, like, oh, I always walk with my arms crossed like this. That's super normal to walk around like that. Like, so embarrassing.
I sometimes go up to the local shop in my pajamas.
Oh, see, now I feel better.
I mean, nobody knows really, because my pajamas are like jogging bottoms and stuff. So I could just be wearing jogging bottoms, but it is my pajamas.
I think it's fine. And I have clothes that look like pajamas. They're real clothes. So I just keep them guessing. But really,
I think if the last 18 months has taught us anything, it's comfy clothes are a good thing.
Yeah. But I've always done that. And in fact, when I was in college, so Urban Outfitters, which is still around and still super popular, that was like my favorite place to shop. But back then in the 90s, it was cheap. Like now it's expensive when you go in there. But when I shopped there in the 90s, it was super cheap. And I used to buy like pajama loungewears for my clothes. I would wear them as clothes, like purposefully, like drawstring jammy bottoms. Cause I was like, no one would know. And I really don't think that they did. So,
yeah.
Anyways,
who cares?
It's enough about me.
So interesting.
I'm just not into fashion. I'm just only into comfort.
I saw on Instagram that you've been buying more books, even though you said you weren't going to buy any more books. So let's briefly talk about our latest book recommendations before we jump into this week's topic. Don't look so guilty, Karen.
Well, it's like a loaded question. I think I've had like so many show up. I don't even know where to even begin.
Oh my God.
All right.
Are you hiding them from
it's
your
really
husband
bad.
and kids?
I just decided to pay myself in books, but I forgot I had ordered this one. It's amazing. They're all amazing. Who am I kidding? But this one I really did forget. This is what happened. And this is all because of the podcast. Because this is what happens to me every night. I power down my phone so I can read a book and go to bed. That's what I do every night. This is exactly what happened since we started this podcast. So I pick up my Briggs book, or I pick up whatever thing that I'm researching. And then in the book, someone will mention a source. And then I'm like, oh my God, because I'm like, I love collecting the original sources. I'll be like, do I have that one yet? And then I have to power back on my phone so I can go to Amazon, so I can go see if I can get a hold of that book. This is how it all starts. And then I'll grab it if I can find it. And then it's like the Amazon suggested things come up. And then before I know it, there's like 3 books that are in my shopping cart, and it's like on and on and on. Does that happen to you? Is what's going on in your world too?
Yeah, but I've got a couple sitting in my shopping cart at the moment, but I'm trying not to buy any new ones just now.
Yeah, I really need to like, I think I'm done. I updated our website. One Scott, one not at there's a book picks tab. And I updated the whole thing and all the art books, all the Oracle decks, tarot cards, and research books. So this is the only one I'll show you because it's right next to me and we don't have all day, unfortunately.
After you showed me a picture of that one last night, I immediately went on a search for it online.
Could you find it?
Well, yeah, well, sort of.
This is super used. I don't think you can get it new anymore. It's beautiful. And I don't know why it wouldn't still be available. I can't remember why I bought the used. It must have just been too expensive or out of print. Let me see. So,
I couldn't find any new ones. I think they were all used.
Yeah, this is the worst shape used book I bought recently, but I don't care.
Say the name of it to keep everyone out of their misery.
It's called Witches with a new introduction by the author. So it was originally published in 1981 and then it was re-released, I think, in 99. Just double check.
It's an art book, right? Rather than
No, you know what? It's both. Sorry, 97. No, it's like super comprehensive and it's also littered with some of the most amazing watercolor artwork I've ever seen.
Oh my goodness.
Like truly it has everything. And the reason I got it is because the reviews were like, you know, this book is absolutely outstanding. It was not like there was not one person who was like, oh, I don't think it's good. It was like, holy shit, so good. So it is the art between the art. Look at this picture. And there's like poetry in it. Who are just listening.
Go and have a look at us on YouTube. You'll be able to see.
I know.
Ooh, it's a woman with a fire in her belly.
Fire fetus. I don't know what the hell. I haven't read it yet, but the artwork is nuts. And I'm sorry, I didn't even say who the author was. I didn't even say. I'm so sorry. Erica. It's Jong. Is that Young?
Maybe. Where's she from?
I'm sure it's probably not Jong. That just makes me sound stupid. Where is she from? I don't know. I haven't even had a minute to go through it. I haven't read one word. I just gasped when I opened it. Because it was so stunning. And then I haven't looked at it since. It was just yesterday that it came. But you can go to her website, ericayoung.com. I'm sure there's more, but it's stunning. It's a stunning book. And I'm done. I really am done. I can't.
Are you?
Like obscene.
Karen says, I'm done till like
every
3 days later when she posts another photo of another
more books. I know. I told you about my steampunk book, didn't I?
No.
That's another book.
So.
Oh yeah, I got a book on steampunk because I keep having requests to draw steampunk things, and I'm like, God, I don't think I have a good grasp of even what. I mean, I know what it is conceptually, but I don't know what it is. Do you know what I'm saying? And I got this book, which I don't have it right next to me, but the way it was described in one sentence or less, which I appreciate, which was it's the science fiction of the Victorian age. And once I heard those words, I was like, oh yeah, I see that. Like I didn't make the connection between the clothes styles.
So it's almost like if people in the Victorian age had in the future Star Trek-y style science fiction, it's what they would have imagined that their technology would have been, which is a bit more like our modern technology, but then wearing Victorian clothes.
Isn't that so cool?
I love a bit of steampunk. I think it's such a cool look.
Oh, it's super cool. But I couldn't I appreciated that very succinct descriptor because it made it all click for me. I was like, oh yes. I see that. And how genius is that descriptor, you know, and it got
sorry.
No, go ahead.
Have you watched The Nevers yet? It's a super cool show. It stars the woman who's the main character is the woman who also plays Jenny in Outlander, Laura.
Oh yeah, I think I have now that you say that because we just saw her.
And it blew my mind, especially the last episode. I'm not going to give anyone any spoilers, but it got to the last episode and I started watching the last episode and I was like, what the hell have I stumbled upon here? Am I even on the same show? That's
Oh,
all I'm going to say.
okay. Why
And
can't I remember
I
that?
think that what they released, possibly because of filming restrictions due to COVID, or
Mhm.
maybe even post-production restrictions, wasn't the whole of the first season. I think it's only the first half of the first season, but it's set in Victorian times,
Mm.
and it's about these people who have special powers. So each of them have a different special power, and it's not like they all have the same special powers. So somebody can read people's minds, and somebody else can turn things into ice, and all of these kinds of things.
Yes.
And they're like shunned by society. Society knows about them,
Yes.
and they're shunned by society, and they all live in this big compound
We
type
did watch
place.
this. We totally did. Yes.
It's so
It's
good. And
so
I would say
good.
it's a little bit steampunky.
Yes.
In a way, there's steampunky elements to it, because it's got all the cool Victorian clothing, but then there's all this like experiments and machinery and all of that kind of thing involved. It's quite a steampunky thing. Anyway, if you haven't watched The Nevers, I totally recommend it.
It's short, right? It's only like 3 or 4 episodes that are long.
Yeah, I think
is that what I'm thinking of?
I think they only released 6 episodes, because I think it's actually only the first half of the season. But then that final 6, maybe, or 8th episode, I was just like completely confused for the first half.
Is this the one where she was getting trained to control the like fire? Was that the girl? I can't remember if it's this show or if I'm getting it confused with another one. She had the fire. She had like a fire ability, and she like didn't know how to control it at all. So she was like almost taken in, but to be taught. But then the other people had superpowers too. Is that the same thing?
It could well be. I do have a bit of a goldfish brain when it comes to remembering minute details about TV shows that I just watched a few months ago.
I'm gonna text Sean downstairs.
Could be, but it might not be. I don't know. Somebody else could answer that question.
I want to know now, but it's like driving me nuts because we just watched something and I was like, oh, that's Jenny from Outlander, and I know the whole thing with abilities, but I watch on my phone, I'm seeing the thing, and I'm like, it's not triggering it, but yet it is. I'm gonna ask Sean. He's downstairs working, but I'm gonna just text him like, did we watch this? Because I need to know. But we watch all that sci-fi fantasy.
I love stuff,
yummy stuff. I always say, like, if there's costumes and accents and it's in a different time, like, I'm in. I don't care what else.
That's my total favorite genre.
That's my favorite thing to read, and that's my favorite thing to watch. So
I know.
I'm in. It's that easy. Oh my God. Have you watched The Norsemen?
No.
Oh no. My God. You haven't?
Is that one good? Is that good? Is that your recommendation?
Fucking hilarious. It's hilarious. Yes. It's costumes.
Is it subtitled?
And accents. Nope. And it's actually it's shocking. So it's filmed in Norway, and the whole cast and crew, they film every single episode twice. They do it once in English, they do it once in Norwegian, and they do it once in English. It is the funniest thing you've ever seen in your whole life. It is so hilarious. You have to watch it. And they're quick little 20-minute episodes. It's the funniest thing you've ever seen. It's so rare to have comedy that also has accents, costumes, and is set in another time. It's like that. And then if you layer on top of that, like, ridiculous humor, you will absolutely love it. The 3rd season is like, it gets, there's an annoying character in my humble opinion, but the 1st season is absolutely, you're gonna die. It is so
okay. I might have to put that on tonight then.
You have to put it on. It's actually the best thing too, if you ever listen to like a freaky podcast or like if you're like sitting at home and you're like feeling uncomfortable about something or whatever, you have a bad dream, put on an episode, you will absolutely die. It is so fucking funny. It is so funny, and it's so creative. Like, you just look at these things and you're like, God, who are these people that take a chance on these ridiculous, just the whole vision of it is totally ridiculous. Like, let's go back. And they're making fun. The best is because it's filmed by Norwegians. They're totally making fun of their ancestry. Like the whole thing is making fun of their ancestry. Like, it's hilarious. Like,
I have seen the picture pop up on Netflix or whatever. And that is not what I expected it to be.
And I
thought it was like a serious drama, but I somehow thought it was in Norwegian and subtitled, which I have to make a commitment to watch something like that, because I can't be painting at the same time because I can't look at the screen to read the lines. So I tend to pick those when I have time to actually sit and watch it. So I will give that a go. Have you ever watched Ghosts?
I don't think so.
That is another one. You need to check that out. They just released the 3rd season on BBC iPlayer, so I don't know if it's available on streaming services yet, but it is so good. It is one of the best shows I think I've ever watched.
Oh, really?
It's it's a comedy again. And the episodes are super short, half an hour. And I think there's only maybe 6 or 8 shows in each season. And it is done by the same people that made Horrible Histories, which is a kids show. I don't know if you've heard of that. And it is about this couple where the woman finds out that she is the sole heir to this massive, huge mansion that belonged to some distant relative of hers that had no other heirs, and she didn't know she existed. And she gets left this house in her will, and it's big and ramshackle and falling down. And when they arrive at the house, there's all these ghosts that they can't see, and they're so funny. They're like, there's like a headless guy. There's a guy who died in the act, or like with his pants down, so he's only got a shirt and no trousers. And there's a woman from like this 1700s or 1600s, and there's all these different ghosts. There's even a whole heap of plague victims in the cellar.
Oh my God, that's
she goes into the cellar, and she's like, they're trying to fix the heating, and they're surrounded by all these people going, no, twist the cable to the left, twist it to the left. And at that point they can't hear them, but then the woman, this isn't a spoiler because it happens in the first episode, the woman has a fall. She falls out of the window or something like that by mistake, and hits her head and becomes unconscious for a split second, like dies for a split second before the hospital sorts her. And as soon as that happens to her, she can see the ghosts, but her partner can't. So she's like in this house surrounded by all these people having conversations with them all. And her partner can't see them. And then it's just all the different things that ensue in each episode, but it's got the perfect British BBC combination of comedy, but also like loads of feeling and emotion in a way that you really feel for the people in the situation. It's like kind of makes you think as well. Like there's one episode where it goes into the backstory of one of the ghosts, and you just feel so sorry for this ghost and how he died.
That's awesome. Well, Norsemen, you don't feel anything but laughter because it's hilarious, and there's no other double layers other than just straight up comedy. But don't you think we need more comedy? Like, yeah, we do. Oh my God, we need some more comedy. Well, I'm definitely gonna check Ghosts out. I put it on my hand so that I wouldn't forget. Although I write things on my hand every day, and I never look at it anyways. But that's like if I need.
What I would do there is I'd write it on my hands, and then 3 hours later I would look at it and think, "What the fuck does that mean?"
Yeah. Oh, that happens. That
that
happens also for sure. Yep. But no, I wrote it down. I really do need to. Not that I watch any. I like have a hard time sitting down and watch TV. Sean has to be watching it, and then I'll be like, I'll go watch it. But if like he's not home or he's not watching it, I don't watch TV. Just like although I did watch YouTube on our big TV last night for the podcast research. And he was like, what are you doing watching TV? Like, you never watch TV. And I was like, I'm doing my podcast research. I was like, this is not watching TV. This is like active learning time. So, like,
so what are we discussing this week?
So we are discussing the URISK. Or
I've never heard of them.
Depending on how cool your accent is, which mine is not. Yeah, this is what I thought was not much to talk about. It's like sometimes, there's these entries of like, oh, this supernatural creature. And actually, Catherine Briggs sums it up in like 2 sentences. I think she's underwhelmed by the URISK because she's like, she ends her little tiny paragraph just saying that. In John Gregerson Campbell's book, Superstitions of the Highlands and Islands of Scotland, he goes into this quite a bit. And that's all she says. And she just was like, yeah, just go see that book. And I was like, well, thanks so much. Cause I totally have it in my fairy library stash. So thanks, Catherine. I will.
That's a good reason to go and buy more books.
I know.
You got referred to a book and you don't have it, you're going to have to just go and buy it.
This one is excellent. And I hadn't actually dove into this one to do research yet. So it was awesome. It was great because it gave me a reason to kind of like dive through. And because this was published, I believe in the 1900, it's sorry, I'm looking at the typecast is like very old timey. And the contents are super clear, but for some reason, I don't know why I don't tend to just grab it and read it in the way in some of the other ones, but actually I'm going to now because it forced me to do a little deep dive in here. I'm like, this is an excellent resource. I know I've seen it cited a million times. So it was awesome to have a reason to specifically look up something. And then I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. So this is, and actually, I do want to cite my sources first because a couple of people did an amazing job digging up things that there isn't a lot on. So I just want to give a shout out to YouTuber Leith Wolf.
I've been watching his videos. Right? They're so good.
He's such a good storyteller. I'd watched his URISK episode a few times. It's 15 minutes and he takes a story that actually not much happens. Actually, the punchline is like, oh, but he tells it in like this amazing, like suspenseful, awesome, entertaining way, like I'm like riveted at the edge of my seat. And then actually nothing actually really happens. And I was like, damn, he that's a storyteller. Like when you can take a story where nothing happens.
Did you say to me that you thought he was Irish?
No, he's Scottish.
Yeah, I was going to say, I had in my head.
No.
Why did I have that in my head? I had in my head that you'd said, oh, his lovely Irish accent. And I was watching one last night.
Are you going to embarrass me? If he listens to this, he has a lovely Scottish accent.
I was watching last night and I was thinking, that's not an Irish accent. That's a Scottish accent.
That's what makes him so legit. Except he's done awesome. He's done a ton of Scottish folklore episodes. And I feel like we're tag teaming some of our content because I'm like, wait, we just did that. Wait, we just did that. Like he just did that. You know what I mean? But we've discussed before, there's only like a finite amount of Scottish folklore. But is there? But now he's trending away from those stories and he's actually doing a bunch of other stuff, which actually makes me sad because I think what he brings to the Scottish folklore is amazing. He's such a good storyteller. And so I got some of this. Oh, sorry. Did you hear that?
Yeah, was it an Etsy transaction?
Yeah, it was an Etsy sale. Sorry. Hilarious. And you know what? My kids hear that sound. You know what they say? They say,
that's a $5, Mom.
No, they say, the sound of mom's greed. I was like, that just bought you a book for college. Don't make fun of me. And when they talk about my business, they put it in air quotes. They're like, ooh, mom's business. And they give me air quotes to make fun of me. I'm like, just my business is helping pay for your college. Watch your mouth. Okay.
I know. I quite often get that when certain people say, oh, are you busy working?
Right?
Yeah, I'm busy working.
I'm working my
Just 'cause
literal ass off. I have no
Just 'cause
ass.
I don't
because
get
I'm
in my
working.
car and drive to an office doesn't
Yes.
mean I'm not working.
Oh my God. I'm like flat out 24/7.
Just because I love it and it's fun doesn't mean it's not work.
Seriously. I have deadlines. Just like, I actually have a business conference that starts in 59 minutes that I need to go attend. I'm doing like a virtual summit. So why am I on my phone? What was I looking up on my phone? Oh, I know. Oh God, my computer just flashed. Don't crash. So the other person I wanted to credit, other than John Gregerson Campbell, is
and sexy Scottish voice man.
I never said sexy. Okay, I might have said sexy. Fine. He is I don't know what her name is, but her podcast is Encounters with the Good People. She is also an amazing she's an amazing storyteller.
Oh, I love her podcast.
I do
it
too.
Is so good.
It's so good. And those are two people that like really just make me feel super dumb for thinking that I can do a podcast, because they're just so edited and beautiful. And every time she has someone like when she has people read like Sir Walter Scott, like she'll have like, and quoted by Sir Walter Scott, and then she has all these like voice actors on hand with the appropriate accent like at the ready. So she has a guy who reads everything in Scottish with a Scottish accent. She has like actors that have Irish, like women actor friends apparently who have Irish accents. So everything's like all authentic because she herself is Australian. I'm like,
but we could do that. You've got Max. He's the accent king.
That's true.
Could you not get him to like do a whole bunch of different accents? Right now, Max do a Scottish accent. That's true. Max do an Irish accent.
He's too expensive. I have to pay him so much money. I have to pay him $15 just to give me that 15-second soundbite.
Yeah.
A little pricey, a little asshole that he is. So So her episode on the URISK is super good. And she does the same thing where some of these URISK stories are like a little, again, underwhelming. And she just drags them out in the most, and I mean that actually with huge dose of affection in the best possible way, where again, like nothing really happens, but because she changes
no one
it up,
wants a 2-sentence story that says,
I know,
here's a URISK, it killed people, the end, or whatever the story is, do
but
they? They want to know all the juicy, gory details. So
I know, and I feel like I need to up my game because I'm like queen of the 2-second story, and I just go right to the point. So I
queen of the 2-second story says co-host to quite often an hour and a half long episode. I don't think so. I think we're queens of juicing it out.
You think so? Honest. Okay. Well, maybe with our banter, probably if you weren't here, I would just be like, the sad and lonely, half human, half goats. The end.
we take a 2-minute story and flesh it out to an hour and a half. We've got a superpower.
Yeah, but are people entertained? That's what I want to know. We need to have more voice actors involved. I'll see if I can strike up a deal with Max. He's really good at a Russian accent too. We'll see how we can add that in the mix. That's super relevant.
He's the villanelle of the household. With his 50 million accents.
Yes, he is. My little buddy. He started a new school this week and he's so happy there, and I'm so happy for him. All right. And actually, this is the first time I'm recording our podcast since February. Did we start in February?
Yeah.
This is the first time I'm recording where my kids are not home. Isn't that nuts? Crazy. It's amazing, actually, is what it is. Oh, I just feel like I'm untethered. Not like they're old. They don't need me for anything, but just like, when you're a mom, you're like, kids are in the house, you just feel them always, and I feel extra free today because they're not here, which is awesome. It's a good feeling.
But it's a shame that it's like 10 a.m. your time and you can't have a drink in hand.
I really wanted to have a drinking episode. I was dying for it. I know, but yeah, it's 10 a.m. and I'm just on my second cup of coffee. That's about as crazy as we're gonna get today. Speaking of which, oh, it's getting cold. Okay. So the URISK is He's a half man and half goat. He's not unlike the fawn, the centaur of other.
Is he bottom half goat?
He's
top
bottom half goat. Yes. Now, Kitty, is she the one? Is that her name, Kitty?
Encounters with the Good People. It's one of my favorite podcasts. I love it.
So I know I do too. I really, really love her. God, my computer flickered again. No. So she was like, I'm not buying the half goat thing, but that seems to be very unanimously like stated in every other source that I've come across. So I'm going to go ahead and just say, yeah, heck yeah. He was a goat. Half goat, I should say. They're a little bit akin to the brownie, only because they are generally considered benevolent and pretty harmless, although they can be very fearsome looking. And a lot of people are very afraid of them because they are large. A lot of times they're tall and they have like extra long extremities. Kitty also says that they're very thin, which I also did not come across anywhere. She was actually the only source, and there is quite a bit in that Campbell book, as well as The Lore of Scotland, A Guide to Scottish Legends. This one by Westwood and Kingsell. This has all first sources in it as well.
Yes, another good one.
None of these, and Catherine Briggs, I couldn't find the physical descriptions that she describes on her podcast. I would love to know what her sources were, because she also said that they had like a goatee. A lot of times they were described as having a goatee, and that's very like centaur looking as well, and fawn looking as well. And that's if they have very kind of dour, sad faces and large, round, like soulful eyes. And again, I couldn't find that anywhere. So I'm dying to know. Wonder if I could reach out to her if she would talk to me.
I bet she would, fellow podcaster.
Yeah, I really genuinely want to know, because it's fascinating, and I couldn't get such that high level of detailed description from anywhere else. I'm like, well, I want to know her sources. So they do have this sort of like gaunt. From a distance, they appear very large and gray, sometimes black, but they are supposed to be overall pretty good-natured. Although again, because of their size and because they hang out solo, where they're only spotted generally in like very, very isolated and remote places. So I definitely get like a Sasquatch vibe. If you're in the wilderness alone, taking a trek from point A to point B, and you look off into the distance, they also tend to linger around the water areas. So waterfalls, kind of isolated lochs. And if you're looking and you see this half giant, half goat,
you run like hell.
That's fucking terrifying.
Terrifying.
And I think that's why people were running from them. I mean, who wouldn't run from that, right? So that being said,
it does sound very Sasquatchy.
Yeah, I think so too.
I mean, there are a lot of creatures in North America that have different names, but are the North American equivalent of the Celtic creatures. So it is it is possible that there's a bit of crossover between Sasquatch and URISK.
I mean, large, hairy, isolated woods. I mean, I know, definitely does not sound dissimilar to me. They were kind of seen sort of like looking, attentively out at people who were passing by. So they were known to often, if like a traveler was going in the wrong direction, they were known to kind of lead them back into the right direction. They kind of like looked out for travelers. They didn't normally mess with people. They didn't really have a dangerous repetation. So they sometimes
sound like a hermit is what they sound like.
Yeah. I just think it's weird because they did on occasion actually help people out and guide them back. I love this. It says, but occasionally they did beat people.
Oh,
you go.
When they had a bad day, when they were on their period.
But most of the time not, but mostly they wouldn't, but sometimes they would.
If you really catch him on a bad day, he's gonna beat you up, but most of the time he's just gonna look at you with sad, soulful eyes.
Yeah, I think it's it sounded like about a 90% chance. Like it's pretty good that he'll be harmless.
Take my chances with that over some other horrible Scottish creature.
But maybe also run like hell. I'm just saying. So they were pretty frightening. And they would often just sit like atop of rocks looking down at people as they like walk. Oh God, that like gives me actual chills. I know.
That is so super
I know. So
like I've got this image in my head.
I know.
Walking along a loch
like a
side,
stalker.
And just like maybe looking at the other side of the loch and seeing this funny, slightly hairy creature sitting really pissed off looking on the top of a rock, just looking at me.
Well, and he's like, and they're looming, you know what I mean? They're like looming over, like staring at you. It's super creepy. But but interestingly, they have a very like sad, somber, like lonely vibe to them. So they really actually craved, even though they're super solitary creatures, they did crave a bit of human attention. So when it got really, really cold in the wintertime, they
just wanted to snuggle with somebody.
Yeah, they just wanted a warm fire. So they would actually come out of the mountains and out of the woods, and they would go to people's farms and they would search for people that were willing to take them in exchange for working on their farms. And so this is where they're kind of brownie-like, because they were very good workers. They would help out by churning butter or grinding grain or helping out in the fields with their farmers. So
did they hide their goat's feet to do this, or did they have them in full show?
I bet you they had them in full show, or else how else would they know that they were URISKs?
Yeah.
So, and it was actually considered to be really lucky if you had a URISK come knock on your door seeking warmth. Like they were always let in. It was like a really good omen. It was like a good thing. And actually some of the well-to-do clans were like very proud to have URISKs amongst them and would save a seat for them in the wintertime. They would just save a seat at the table in case one of them came down seeking warmth and comfort. They would welcome them in always. It was like a token of good luck almost. Isn't that so interesting?
It's so interesting because that as well just takes us to another level for me, because it's not just a case of glimpsing something far off in the woods that could be just something else and it's mistaken for a creature, but they actually come and knock on the door and do some work. It kind of like makes them even more real.
I know, and they're sharing their hearth and they're sharing their meals.
They sound like a typical introvert in that most of the time they want to be alone, but sometimes being alone is lonely. So they'll spend a little bit of time in human company. But once they've had a little bit of time in human company, they've had enough and they need to go off on their own again.
And like recharge their batteries.
Recharge their batteries.
I get it.
I get it. That's me.
I know, me too. So, and there are quite a few big, long URISK stories. It's not just like these little sightings. There's quite a few, long interactions that last a day or a season, or much like the brownies.
Are they all over Scotland or just in a particular region?
They are really in the very remote regions of the Highlands.
Okay.
But actually, no, that's not true. I think they're actually as far as England as well. They just hang out in remote areas. But they're not just in the Highlands. I'm sorry, Lynn, actually, just as in solitudes and remote localities. But actually, I think the demographic spread is quite far.
Okay. Well, there's quite a lot of remote areas in Scotland, to be fair.
Yes, there are. But the Highlands has the most sightings of them because it's the most remote. But there are things like and they list the specific locations, and there's quite a few areas in Scotland that are to this day named after Urisks. There's like Urisk Rock and Urisk Waterfall and Urisk. There's quite a few mentions. Like there's one, but then it's interesting too because it says like a Urisk haunting a place which is in Argyllshire and Perthshire. He stayed in the summertime near the top of the hill, and in the winter came down to the straths. There's a waterfall near the village of Clifton at Tindrum, where it stayed on these occasions. It is still called some Gaelic word, which means the Urisk's Cascade.
Go on, try and say it.
Oh my God. I can't even. There's like accent. It's like there's like an accent aigu from French in there. I don't even know what that is.
I want you to give it a go so I can laugh at you.
I nailed it.
Did you know that there is actually a website where you can type in words and it will pronounce them, and you can listen to them? Because I did that for some Gaelic words a little while back when I was reading a story and I wanted to know. And the Gaelic pronunciation was completely different to what I expected it to be.
I know. I just kind of skip over that because I find it disruptive when I'm listening to podcasts when people say like, when they get to a word, for example, and they'll say like a Uric haunting, and then they'll say, okay, I'm going to say it now, but I know I'm going to say it wrong. And this is how I'm going to say it. But I think, you know what I mean? I'm like, just get on with the story. Just say it wrong or don't say it. But we don't need to talk about how we can't say it for 30 seconds. That's just me. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, just make your bad guess or just skip it altogether and just say, you're as haunting.
Just say a Gaelic word.
Yeah. Or
a place.
Just run it over all bad. Like no one will know. We don't know. Nobody knows Gaelic. It's all good.
I have to say that when I was telling the story to our Celtic Collective students the other day about the Kelpie, the story said it in Gaelic every time, and I just changed it to Kelpie because it was
exactly. And then it doesn't like disrupt the flow of the story. I'm all about that. Or just like plow through it all wrong and like nobody would know. No one would correct you. So there's all sorts of little sightings. The Urisk of Ben Loy, also on the confines of these counties, came down in the winter from his lofty haunts to the farm of Sockach in Glen Orkney, which lies at the base of the mountain. It entered the house at night by the chimney, and it is related that on one occasion the bar from which the chimney chain was suspended and on which the Urisk laid its weight in descending, being taken away and not meeting its foot as usual, the poor supernatural got a bad fall. So they're like bumping about in the night. Exactly. And it says the same Urisk was fond of staying in a cliff at Morag Waterfall, and its labors and its job was to keep the waters from falling too fast over the waterfall, over the rocks. Isn't that so fascinating?
Yeah.
And they said this Uric might be seen by anyone. A stone on which it sat with its feet dangling over the fall is called the Uric Stone to this day. It has sometimes watched the herds of the Sockach farm. So
they sound so sad. I feel kind of sorry for them, actually.
Yeah,
they just want a bit of love. Do they ever I wonder if they died out because they were so alone that they didn't meet a female Urisk to procreate with.
So there were female Urisks, as a matter of fact, but there's no stories that I came across that featured them. They were actually so good-natured and like seeking human comfort. They actually got taken advantage of quite a bit as well. There was
bloody humans.
I know there was this is horrifying. Actually, there is a story, and this is from this same book, John Campbell's Superstitions of the Highlands and Islands of Scotland, where in Strathglass, which is in Inverness-shire, there was a farmer gelded it, which means castrated it in order to fully
And
domesticate
eating
it.
bits.
And then this is awful. It says the weather, and then the farmer
That's
reported horrible. It said the farmer reported that the weather at the time being frosty and made a considerable outcry for some time thereafter. You think? First of all, it's like, also, we just need a pause right here. If this is a supernatural creature,
Don't go cutting off its bits.
Yeah, he has a right to its bits. And if it's not a supernatural creature, that means
he still has the right.
That means he was actually a human, and you just cut off a human's bits. Either way, you're cutting out bits of something that's at least half human. So I have so many questions about the story because that's
so many
horrifying,
questions.
right?
I mean, I can understand doing that to dogs and cats because there are way too many.
Well, yeah, and also we have anesthesia, so they don't feel anything when we do it. I have a feeling.
I know.
I'm just saying, in 1500, they probably don't have spinal taps where they can give you anesthesia to like numb you up before they cut your balls out. So, what do they have? A little bit of whiskey, and they're like, take a leather belt, like. Bite on this and
bite down hard.
Yeah.
Bite down hard on this, like cut your face.
Just twinge for a moment and then they snip. I mean, that's like, who was this poor thing that just got castrated?
Why did he do that anyway? Why would you?
Well, because they want to fully domesticate it. So like, because you're like, that's like also like aggressive dogs, aggressive cattle, like they castrate them because it takes all the hormones out and then they chill out.
Well, maybe that guy should have castrated himself to chill out, and then he wouldn't have felt the need to go and cut bits off another being.
Or that Urisk should have beat the shit out of that guy before he had a chance to do it. But that's what they were kind of known. Remember the Dobbies who were like the dumb brownies?
Yeah.
I feel like this is reminds me of that, where they're just a little bit simple and they are just like seeking some warmth and attention, and they got taken advantage of.
It's a little bit Theon Greyjoy, isn't it?
It is. There was another.
And now I've got images of the guy eating the
sausage.
sausage.
Oh God, that was.
You remember we're talking about Game of Thrones for anyone that isn't in the know.
Yes.
Poor Theon Greyjoy got his bits cut off, and then the guy who cut his bits off then sat and ate a sausage in front of him.
That was that storyline I struggled to follow because it was just horrifying.
I know.
Absolutely horrifying.
But he did become docile afterwards.
Yes. Oh God.
Poor Theon. I felt so sorry for him.
Oh my God, it was horrifying. Yes. Oh, here's another story that's very famous. And I did come across two variations of this. There's the Leith Wolf in his YouTube rendition has one story, and it's very different. Well, it has a common thread from this story that's told through the lore of Scotland. And I'll just read it to you. And it's actually I'll talk about why it's interesting later. Hold on. It just says,
well, they're all interesting.
They are.
Let's face it.
Yes. It says another nasty trick played on the harmless Urisk was told by Thomas Keightley in the fairy mythology published in 1850. A miller noticed that his mill was being operated mysteriously at nighttime when there was nothing to grind. Annoyed and worried about possible damage to his machinery, he set a man to watch and see who the intruder was. But as the watchman had made up a good fire of peats, the worm lulled him to sleep. When around middle night he woke, he saw sitting opposite him a rough, shaggy being, aka Sasquatch of Scotland. Yeah. Boldly he asked his name, and it answered Urisk. On being asked,
they don't even have a name; they're just like human. What's your name? Human.
Sasquatch. But they all speak the same language. That's nice not to have a language barrier. On being asked what his own name was, he said, myself. After this exchange,
they sound so
they're
sad.
So mean. Well, I know. Well, that's what the human said, myself. No, sorry.
Rude.
Yes. he said, so the human said myself. Yeah, he's like tricking him. After this exchange, the Urisk fell fast asleep by the fire, and the man tipped a panful of hot ashes into his lap, setting his shaggy fur alight. Screaming, the Urisk ran to the door, and several of his kind outside were heard yelling, "What's the matter with you?" "Oh, he set me on fire," cried the Urisk. "Who did?" "Myself," he answered, because that's what the man said his name was.
Oh, that's so tricky.
And then they said, "Then put it out yourself." Bunch of asshole Urisks. So in Leith Wolf's rendition, there was the similar situation, only it was a maiden in a village that the Urisk kept harassing. He kept coming like every single day and driving her insane. And so in that story, and he tried to get her every day. He'd be like, "What's your name?" And she finally said, "My name is myself." And then she's the one who dumps hot ashes on his laps. And the same thing happens. He runs into the forest and he's all burning. And his Urisk buddies say, "What happened?" And he said, "Who did that to you?" And he said, "Myself." So that and that apparently that's a story that is really similar in quite a few different folk tales, both Scottish ones, but also in ancient Greece. Wow. In the story of Odysseus. And then there's another things that go back in history related to that. So it's super interesting. That has sort of become, and I've heard that story also. I think it was when I was doing the Brownie podcast episode as well. So it's kind of been like twisted and tangled up with like another ancient story. So I don't know if maybe that just, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know jack shit, but like, I don't know. Somehow, I don't know if it was his nature or something like that happened similarly. And then it got caught up and twisted with that other much older tale. But I thought that was super interesting.
Almost seems like it's a tale, if you were gonna super analyze, but sum it up, make a summary of the main kind of points of it. It almost sounds like a tale in, if you have someone that's hanging around that's super annoying and they're a little bit depressive and they're not much fun to be around, but they're like so keen on your company and they're a little bit attention seeking because they've got that slightly depressive, don't know how to deal with other humans personality. There are people, not that I'm not trying to be nasty, but there are people like that. This is a good way of getting rid of them. Good way of getting rid of them is to be a little bit tricky and nasty. Because they're not only are they a little bit sad and depressive and needy, but they're also gullible. So let's play a trick on them by getting them to do something, which is then going to make them feel ashamed, and then they'll go away because they're ashamed.
I know. And actually, I think you've just hit the nail on the head, because a lot of these stories, that's exactly what happens. Like, they're kind of like the loner who like nobody likes. Like, honestly, they're like needy and like a little off or a little weird, and they don't look quite right. And people are like, "Get away from me." It's funny that you brought that up. There's a story that there was this Urisk that used to harass. It was on the land of the Carls. And so there was this Urisk that used to just taunt this shepherd. And just taunt him like every day, like relentlessly. And they have quotes of the Urisk being like, "You're a Carl, your dad's a Carl, you're all Carls," like blah, 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 blah. Like this ridiculous Carl. This like ridiculous thing. And the Urisk was so annoying, it actually drove that shepherd from that farm for good. That he was like, "This is so fucking annoying, I'm out of here." And he left. So then they do
kind of sound like I could easily be suckered into feeling sorry for them and being like, "Oh, they're so lonely, they just want a little bit of attention.
I know, but
I'll be their
annoying."
friend." And then I invite them for dinner, and then after the third or fourth time that I've invited them for dinner, I'm like, I can see why they're lonely. They're lonely because they're fucking annoying and I don't know who wants to be around.
super
but by
annoying.
that point, they've suckered onto you, and it's really hard to get rid of them.
Well, some of them genuinely are really helpful. I think the ones who come and are helpful.
But just because someone's helpful doesn't mean that they're not annoying.
That is true. And there are a lot of
I sound really harsh here.
No, I'm digesting it. And as always,
I have to
completely
say that
on board.
I have to say that I would be the kind of person that would say, oh, but there's a reason why. There must be a reason why they're so lonely. There must be a reason why they're so sad. I'm just going to show them a little bit of love and compassion. And before I know it, 2 weeks down the line, I'm thinking, why did I get suckered into this?
I know.
But then I'm too nice to actually do anything about it.
I know. So I have to finish the story because it's actually so funny. And I'm going to do the Karen version, not the actual Scottish version, because I just, so we all understand. And I also didn't write down the direct quote. But so this annoying Urisk, who's tormenting the shepherd Carl, finally drives that guy out. And then there's a new guy who comes in, and his name is Donald Moore. So he's the new shepherd.
Mm-hmm.
And Uric starts harassing this guy now. And he's every single day, and he's doing the same thing. He's like in the woods, and this guy is just like jeering at him. And it is like so annoying. And so one day, it was like in the middle of the night, there was like a storm came in, and he's been shepherding all day and all night. And Donald is exhausted, and he's wet. He's wet, and he's frozen, and he's hiking through the woods, and he's like so done. And the Uric calls out, Donald Moore, I don't like you. And that is a direct quote from the story.
Urisk, I'm changing my mind on them. I don't feel sorry for them anymore. They're really annoying.
Basically, Donald is so done with this guy. He's so done. He basically says, he doesn't say these words, but this is what he means. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, he's so done. He's like, shut the fuck up. Like, screams it into the night, into his Scottish Gaelic. And weirdly, and this is one of those stories where actually...
So he'd say, had your wish to ball bag.
Yes, that's exactly what he said. And then miraculously, he never heard from that Uric again. Boom. He was like, mic drop.
That's how you do it.
You're
you
done.
Tell them that they're annoying.
Yes,
and then they go and annoy somebody else instead.
Yes. And then that's where the next story comes from. No. So that's basically what happened. So yeah. So there's a few stories
maybe
like that.
Karen, there's actually only one Urisk.
Whoa.
Here's the theory. There's only one Urisk, and that Urisk sits in his lonely place in the middle of nowhere, finds someone to annoy because he doesn't want to be lonely anymore.
Right.
Pisses them off so much that they tell him to fuck off. and then he just goes to the next person.
I think you're so right.
And he basically person hops.
Yep.
Pissing off everybody that he tries to be friends with.
And that's where his stories are heard far and wide, because he's doing all these. Oh my God. We just solved the mystery of the Urisk. Catherine Briggs, you're welcome.
And then are there any stories of the Urisk from like the 1950s? Because if there aren't, then my theory is that the Urisk pissed off so many people in Scotland that he went, oh, I've got nowhere else to piss people. Like, nobody will be my friend in this country. I'm going to emigrate to the United States. There's a lot of people over there that I can annoy. And then goes over and becomes a Sasquatch. There you go.
There actually is a modern story. Modern.
Oh, is there?
Not modern as in the 2000s, but there is one from, I think it dates from the 40s. And yeah, and I just listened to it yesterday, and I can't remember where I heard it from. And they were saying that children, it like came upon some children and scared them away. And they said it looked large and gray. And then they were saying, oh, it must have been a Urisk. But they didn't say anything about the goat feet, the goat legs. So I don't know, maybe it was the Sasquatch.
Maybe he'd just come back for his holidays to
Yeah.
Scotland for a little bit and then went, oh, they still don't like me over here. I'm going to move back to America.
Well, this one, I think this one, oh no, I don't actually, I'll have to find it again and read. And that was the only one that I heard that was not like old-timey story. You know, old-timey. That's super specific historical date and time.
Let's hear some old-timey stories of Scotland.
But I've saved the coolest part for last.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm all ears.
This is a little nugget, which I think is the most intriguing thing of all about the URISK, which is this. The URISKs supposedly are the children of a fairy and a human union.
Ooh.
Yeah. And it's specifically a fairy female with a male human counterpart. So the children of these fairy unions are actually called, a Leannan she, which is the actual like Gaelic word for, which means fairy, sweetheart, or familiar spirit. And this is fascinating too. This is quoted from John Gregerson Campbell's book. The use of this word, that Leannan and she, by the translators of the Bible into Gaelic is made a great handle of by the common people to prove from scripture that fairies actually exist. Right? How cool is that? So I thought that was really...
Of course they do.
Well, they were like, no, fairies need to exist. It says right there in the Bible. Fascinating. And then I also had to read, I know.
So do you think they're super sad because they're in between both worlds?
Well, according to Leaf Wolf, I really need his name to be Liam, so I can just say Liam and not Leaf. Is Leaf is that like a common name in Scotland?
No, I've never heard of it before.
I wonder if it's like a true name or that's like his alias. So that is something that I read, I got from the books. That wasn't like his hypothesis, but his hypothesis angle was that the union, because the URISK is half human, half fae, they inherited, and I wrote this down. Oh yes, they inherited like the power of the fae, and actually URISK in another meaning also means like fortune teller or someone with sort of magical powers as well. But then it's also has the like confliction of humans that he inherited from his father, who was like this moody, broody kind of emotional beast, and that comes from like the human part of their union. So I kind of love that. It's like that's where like he is supernatural, but it also has these like these character flaws that come from the human side. And so I thought that was super interesting.
That is so interesting.
I know, it makes it like really deep too, not just like emotionless. But I did want to read a little bit of from, again, the superstitions of the Highlands and Islands of Scotland, because he goes a little bit into like the actual relationship between the fairy female and the human male.
Let's hear the juicy details.
What happens, and it actually has a little hilarious ending as well, which also refers to a palace, which I was like, here we go again. The fairies with their like big palatial compounds that they're all from. It makes me a little jealous. Okay, it's a little bit long. I might just cut it to the... Well, no, it's so interesting. Do you have a minute? Is it okay if I read it?
Yes, I am all ears. I want to
apologize. Everyone else, you can just skip. You can just skip forward 2 minutes if you want. But I just thought
if they've got this far, then they're in it for the long haul. Or they've got their podcast on sleep timer and they've fallen asleep.
Okay, so let me just skim. I just think these 2 pages are fascinating. So maybe we'll just, we have 20 minutes left. So I'm just going to go for it. So this is on page 40, he talks about the men of peace, and they're really talking about the English elf. So I was going to do elf a few episodes ago, so I was diving into like where did elf become fairies, and basically, and are they different, or are they the same? They're actually exactly the same. It's like the word elf kind of was replaced by the word fairy, I think around 14 or 1500s, but they really are equivalent. In my head, I was searching for some big difference or some explanation. There really is none. It was more like a literary change other than anything else.
Oh, that's interesting. So I just always thought that elf was like a branch of fairies.
No,
you know how we've spoken about how, like, well, last week, it wasn't last week, we had a week off. Selkies were actually fairies. So in Scotland, fairy is an all-encompassing word, not just for slightly humanoid creatures, but also for things that aren't like that at all, that are actual, almost more like a zoomorphic, you know, an animal type creature. And I thought that elves were like a branch of the fairy family. So
yeah, I think they're one and the same. It was just somewhere along the lines, the language used to describe the race just simply changed over. But that was really helpful because I kept thinking that they were totally different entities. So so he basically is describing the race of fairies. Oh God, I'm just going to go for it.
Go for it. Come on.
I want to hear. So the elves, or the fairies, have children of their own and require the services of midwives like the human race. Howdies, as they are called, taken in the way of their profession to the fairy dwelling, found on coming out that the time they had stayed was incredibly longer or shorter than they had imagined, and none of them was ever better ultimately of her adventure. Blah, blah, blah. So they're just saying, I'm just introducing you to the whole theory of like offspring of the fairies. Elves have two ideas. All right, I'm going to skip to this. Mortals should have nothing to do with any of the race, meaning they should have nothing to do with fairies, nothing to do with elves. No good comes out of the unnatural connection. However enchanting at first, the end is disaster and death. When therefore the fairy is first met, it is recommended by the prudent to pass by without noticing. So like ignore one if you see one. Yes, or if obliged or incautious enough to speak and pressed to make an appointment, to give fair words, saying, if I promise that, I will fulfill it. Will sufficiently near houses to attract the attention of the dogs, they immediately give chase and the fairy flies away. So they're like, arouse attention, make sure, get your dogs out and come and chase them away. Like, don't have anything to do with these fairies, because that the union between the two races is not good. The elven youth is very solicitous about his offspring when his mortal mistress bears him children. Okay. And the love that women have to him as their lover or familiar spirit, the Leannan she, is unnaturally passionate.
There's nothing wrong with unnatural passion.
Right?
Sounds quite interesting to me.
I know, but then it says the elven mistress is not always so secure of the affections of her human lover. So she's like a little jealous because she's afraid he may get tired of her and leave her. On meeting her,
there's always one rule for men and another for women.
Even
it
in
kind of pisses me off.
I know, it's so annoying.
Actually, not only that, but the women seem to get a raw deal. That's like saying, like the male fairies will have all these women fawning over them and like super in love, and they're so attractive, and then the female fairies have a hard time keeping their man.
Well, except that they fool them because they have magical powers, and they do that because he is actually put under spells to keep appointments with her in the future every single night.
Appointments.
So, right? Excuse me.
Appointments.
Are you ready for our appointment? Sean, are we having an appointment tonight?
I think you need to reintroduce that. That's a perfect phrase.
I love it. I know. And then it says, if he dares for one night to neglect his appointment, she gives him such a sound thrashing the first time she gets hold of him that he never neglects it again.
Oh my goodness.
Right? So she's like,
my goodness.
You will love me, or I'm going to kick the shit out of you emotionally and or physically. That's how I'm reading that sentence. How about you?
You had better keep your appointment,
right?
mister.
Yep. While he remains faithful to her, she assists him at his trade as farmer, shepherd, etc., makes him presents of clothes, tells him when he is to die and eat because she has magic powers, and even when he is to leave her and get married. So she must know everything, like, because she is Fae and can bestow him these gifts of knowledge. She gives, it says she gives Cyan a magic belt or other charm to protect him in danger. If offended, however, her lover is in danger of his life. The children of these alliances are said to be the Urisks.
That sounds like such a unhealthy relationship.
Right? She is like cracking the whip. I actually know
but she's also kind of keeping him against his will.
Oh, yeah. Of course she is. Yes. So they're like the Urics are the offspring of this like weird relationship. That's what I mean. Like this to me is the juicy like stuff. This is like
codependent and kind of like a little bit so nasty and
I know, isn't that so fascinating? And this is so funny. So, I was watching his video, listening to that podcast, and they both mentioned like, oh, these are the natural offspring of this union. And then I was looking, they mentioned the Leon and she, and then I was like, what is that? Right? It's like, what is that? And that's where I found all this stuff. I'm like, this is the juicy stuff. This is like,
that is totally the juicy stuff.
Like soap opera shit right here. Like, I want to know more. And this is also where this last paragraph is the best. It says, those who have taken elven women for wives have found a sad termination to their mesalliance. I don't actually know what that word means. Is that like a bad union? What does that mean?
I think it can mean whatever you want it to mean just now, because I bet nobody else knows what it means.
I gotta look it up. I should have done this last night. What does mesalliance mean? Oh, I spelled it wrong. Damn it. All right, you look that up while I read this. No, I'm just kidding. I'll look it up afterwards. I think it's like their union. The defect or peculiarity of the fair enchantress, which her lover at first had treated as of no consequence, proves his ruin. Her veracity thins his herds. He gets tired of her or angry with her, and in an unguarded moment reproaches her with her origin. So she's like, you're just a fairy. She then disappears, taking with her the children and the fortune she brought him. The gorgeous palace, fit for the entertainment of kings, vanishes, and he finds himself again in his old black, wait for it, dilapidated hut with a pool of rain drippings from the roof in the middle of the floor. Isn't that so good? I was like, oh, snap. Say goodbye to your palace.
And I'm taking everything with me.
I'm taking our half goat baby.
You better not leave me, because if you leave me, you're going to be left in a shithole of a house.
I love that they describe the rain dripping through the thing. It's so awesome.
Karen.
Yes.
Mesalliance is a marriage with a person of inferior social position.
Boom. So that would be the human father.
We are a very highly educational podcast.
We've learned really something
new. So even though I just Googled that just now.
That's okay. That's how we all know things. So to me, that's the most interesting part of the whole Urisk story is the Urisk backstory and where it came from.
No wonder they're kind of messed up, because that is a messed up partnership that they are.
He's basically he's a child of divorce. That's what that is.
Mm-hmm. He's a child of divorce from two parents who clearly hated each other
Yeah, I
as
think
well.
so.
Or the mother is really
she's got some issues.
She's got some issues. This is a sidestep, but if you haven't listened to it yet, you need to listen to the podcast Bad Bad Thing. It is so good. This reminded me of it. It's only 6 episodes or 7 maybe. And it's a true story, and it is based on this woman who, and this isn't a spoiler because you're told it right at the beginning.
What's it called? Bad Bad Things?
Bad Bad Thing.
I'm writing it under ghosts on my hand. Bad Bad Things. Okay.
And it is about this woman who she found out that her husband was having an affair, but the husband plays with her. Like, he's like, I love this new woman, but I'm not sure if I want to leave you yet. So I'm going to kind of keep both of you dangling. She starts recording everything he does. She puts GPS trackers on his car. She records all these super emotionally disturbing, manipulative messages on her phone.
They play it all on the podcast.
They play it all on the podcast, and then
amazing.
She shoots the woman.
What?
And then shoots herself.
Whoa, that's not amazing. That's horrifying.
And that's not a spoiler, because that is the whole thing. The podcast is all about, they tell you that at the beginning because it's a case that's known.
Got it.
And then they play all of these like voice memos that she leaves on her phone and stuff, like leading up to the incident.
Wow.
And they analyze it. And this just reminded me of that, because it's like, that was a fucking unhealthy relationship.
I know.
She was bribing her husband to stay with her. He was not making his mind up about whether he wanted her or his new woman. She should have just turned around and said, do you know what? This isn't working for me. I'm making my mind up for you. See you later. I'm away. But instead, they just self-destructed.
They really do. Well, she's insecure. She's like, no, every night you have to be with me. And that's why he also says like that they're unnaturally passionate. Like, I love how he says that.
You don't keep a relationship with someone by, and this
jealous.
Is me talking about being the relationship expert that I am, by being jealous and bribing them and manipulating them.
Well, I mean, he says point blank on page 41, mortals should have nothing to do with any of the race. No good comes out of the unnatural connection. I mean, he says it right here. It's not our fault if people just don't heed his wise warning. If they're
swept away with the beautiful good looks. And
so you have been warned. If you are a man listening to this, you especially don't go into that fairy ring. Yeah, they will rope you in. So yeah, that's my conclusion of the Uric story, which I thought that last nugget, thanks to this is the reward we get for spending all our money on first sources on Amazon, because had I not gone that, I never would have gotten there. So
what a fascinating story. There's like
a lot of layers.
You know how throughout a story you can change your point of view and your perception. Yes. So you started off telling me about them, and my first reaction was, oh, look, they're nice little creatures, nice little lonely creatures. And then I was like, oh, they're just lonely and they just want somebody to love them, and humans are buggers for being horrible. And then it turned,
they were assholes,
turned a 180 or 360 or whatever it is. And I was like, oh, they're really annoying.
They're super annoying.
No wonder the humans are horrible.
Right.
And then it went even further.
Then we went back around.
They're messed up from birth.
They have a reason for being, because they've got horrible mothers. They have a horrible parent. Their parent. Yeah. I mean, they have very bad role models.
I know.
So could you expect them to be any other way, really?
They obviously didn't get the therapy they needed.
They really don't have
early intervention.
Good early intervention in the 1500s.
No.
Only they knew what a good therapist could do. You think they had therapists back then? Do you think those were like the witches? No.
No, I think they most definitely did not have.
Get back to work. Shut it. Get me my mead. Keep churning the butter. Your whole life was just making food. I think that was your whole
miserable.
life was just
and
sustaining
cleaning,
life.
Cleaning,
Yeah.
washing, cooking.
I don't think there was even some cleaning. They didn't have the resources. I guess if you lived near water, you could clean, but maybe I guess there's a lot of water in Scotland, so they actually was probably never a problem.
You complain that you've got to do laundry.
I know I do.
Which involves picking up smelly teenage boys' clothes and putting in a machine and switching on.
Okay, but in my defense, I have 3 boys, so it is bad.
So smelly.
It's really bad.
But can you imagine doing it in the 1500s?
No.
You have to go and fetch the water from the well.
Yeah.
You have to heat the water up by lighting a fire.
Do you think they heated it? I don't think they did. I think they brought the wash to. I think they brought the clothes to the water source. That's why all the women wash her at the fords. They didn't. Well, I don't think they knew to heat the water then. I came later.
Maybe. I don't know.
I think they brought the laundry to the shore and they washed them directly in the streams and in the rivers.
I just know that when I lived in my bus in Spain,
mm-hmm.
and I had no washing machine, it was like a whole day thing.
Oh yeah, I did laundry.
Go and get water from the river.
Oh yeah,
heat it up on an open fire, which I've had to light and stoke myself.
Yep.
Put the clothes in the water, jingle them about myself.
Yep.
Scrub them myself.
Oh, I know.
Rinse them. It was like a whole day thing.
I know. When I was backpacking in Africa, was there for 3 months, and there was nothing. So we used to bring our wash to the lake, which was filled with hippo shit, 4 feet of hippo shit. So I'm like, wait, I'm sorry. How clean are these clothes? We're laden with hippo shit. So that was when we were in the lakes, when we were, when there was a salt, like a brackish, Lake Turkana, which is in northern Kenya, which is enormous lake. We would bring our wash there and wash it. And then there was crocodiles. So before you started washing, you had to chuck rocks into the water, the shallow end, to actually scare the crocodiles away, so you wouldn't get eaten while you were washing your clothes.
That's terrifying.
In the brackish water. I know.
Can you imagine if you'd come across a kelpie and a URISK?
Right.
I know. And a Ben Mia,
all
at the same time.
That would be terror. She's the one I'm most afraid of with her.
I think if I had all of those things to contend with on top of all the other things to contend with,
plus the laundry itself is a nightmare.
I would have just gone in dirty clothes for a very long. I would have just suffered dirty clothes for a very long time.
I think that's actually what people did. They probably only had 2 shirts. It was the one they're wearing or the one they're washing. And that was
very stinky.
Yes. Thank goodness it's 2021. And I have a washing machine. Actually, that reminds me, I actually have to switch my wash over. Yeah. My mom duties never end. Well, I think that's a wrap. I think we need to wrap it.
That was so good, Karen. I learned so much though, because I hadn't known anything about them.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
And even though they're supposed to be nice, I kind of don't like them.
They kind of have issues. They're a little scary. I'm not going to lie. And they were scared of them for good reason.
I'd rather the monster that was an obvious, downright obvious nasty monster than the monster that started off being just over emotional and needy.
They're a little bitter too. So yeah, I agree. Well, that's your weekly dose. We'll try to be regular with our schedule, but life sometimes gets in the way. So bear with us, and we'll be back as soon as we can. But thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
All right, bye.